Hi, my name is Toby and I'm currently a Year 2 music student studying at Cardiff University. Today I would like to talk to you guys about student accommodations in the UK, and I'll be focusing on the types of accommodation and their differences. There are mainly two types of student accommodation, one being uni accommodation and one being private accommodation, and their names are pretty self-explanatory. Uni accom is basically accommodations built by the university itself for their own students to live in, and private accommodations are accommodations built and owned by other companies. And there are a lot of differences between both, and the most obvious one is of course the price. Private accommodations are going to be more expensive than uni accommodations, and there are several things that are going to affect the price of the accommodation. Firstly, the room type. A studio flat is obviously going to be more expensive than a shared flat, and usually for a shared flat you will have to share a kitchen, and you will get an ensuite room for yourself, which means that you will have a private bathroom and a private bedroom. And for some of the shared flats, you may even have to share the bathroom with the rest of the people, but usually these flats are even cheaper. And these kinds of details should be well listed on your uni's website or other accommodation renting websites, so be sure to check out these details when looking for accommodations. In terms of facilities, private accommodations usually have more facilities than uni accoms, as the price suggests. Taking the private accommodations that I stayed at last year as an example, it has a gym, a karaoke room, a laundry room, and so much more. Whereas for university accommodation, usually they would only provide you with basic facilities like a laundry room. And so if cost is not a concern to you, I think that you will find private accommodation a much more pleasant or better place to stay. And I'm not an expert when it comes to uni accoms because I've never actually lived in one, but for my uni, freshmen will be guaranteed a place to stay. And I'm not sure whether other universities have the same policy, but it is commonly known that uni accoms are packed with freshers. So if you're a freshman, also take a look at uni accoms. And for all of the uni accoms at my uni, they don't actually provide studio rooms. So I think that this makes it easier for freshers to make friends, because you and your flatmates will be cooking together, shopping for groceries, and hanging out. And there is actually a rather interesting thing that I heard from a friend of mine who studies at Manchester, where she rented a shared flat from her uni, and the uni actually put her in a flat with people who are also from Hong Kong. And this makes me think that some unis, although mine doesn't, intentionally put people who come from the same place in the same flat so that they would quickly become friends. And normally I believe that when you study abroad, you should try and hang out with local students. This way you can broaden your horizons and learn their culture, but this is not exactly a bad policy. Just like what I mentioned before, I stayed at a private accom last year, and the room I rented was actually a studio room. And as the name suggests, it's like a studio, but you have to share the kitchen with another person. And if you're a person who enjoys privacy and your budget does not allow you to rent a studio, a studio which may be a comparatively rarer room type than a shared flat or studio, but it's definitely an option for you to consider. If you've decided that you will be renting a room from a private accommodation, there are several websites that I would recommend you guys to look at. Well, this is obviously not a sponsored video, but last year I booked my accommodation at a website called Uni Lodges. But there are also other websites like University Living and Amber Students that you can look at. And they usually have a lot of offers. And for me, last year when I booked my accommodation, I received a £50 Amazon voucher from them. So when you're trying to book an accommodation, look at all the different offers that different websites provide. And lastly, take a look at the deposit fee when considering which accommodation to book, because I would say that do not expect you will get your deposit back at the end of the year when you rent from a private accommodation. And this is not just my experience, but also many of my friends, that their rooms were extremely clean by the time they check out, but the provider still took their deposits for things like dust build-ups. So I would recommend choosing an accom that has a cheaper deposit fee. And that's all I would share with you guys today. Thank you.